Hi, I'm Gina. I'm from Hortifly. First of all, congratulations. The show, from what we've seen, looks amazing, and I cannot wait to watch it. One of the things that I'm looking forward to in Rings of Power is that there are so many female characters. They are badass, and they are interacting with each other, which is something that was not there in the trilogy. Was that thought at the back of your head when you were bringing these female characters in the forefront in the stories in Rings of Power?
So really, thank you for the question. It's a wonderful question. And really, our watchword always was just go back to the books, go back to the books, go back to the books. And there's some awesome female characters in the books, and we found that there are opportunities to go deeper into some of their stories. Like, for example, Galadriel, her very name means, sort of loosely translated to elf maiden with a crown of golden hair upon her head. And the reason for that is that when she would spar with other elves, she would put her hair in braids and put like a crown on her head. So the idea of Galadriel as warrior is just embedded into the very DNA of Middle-earth. So we said, okay, well, what if we meet Galadriel before she was the sort of wise, matronly lady of Lothlorien, and when she was a warrior on a battlefield? And then in terms of some of the female friendships, those grew very organically out of the stories of Middle-earth. You know, Tolkien has this wonderfully tantalizing bit in Concerning Hobbits where he talks about the wandering days and these three branches, Harfoots, Falahides, and Stores. And so he said, like, Harfoots sound really interesting. And it it speaks of them being as beardless, bootless, and slightly darker of skin than the other branches of Hobbitdom. So he said, that sounds interesting. What kind of people would live in that sort of world? And then we said, well, what if there's these two young women? And very quickly developed this very organic friendship between what became the actors of Markella Kavanagh and Megan Richards. It brings, it's just a lot into the show. So we were excited to just have all kinds of different relationships and people and stories in the show.
A short question. Are there going to be Entwives and Dwarven women that we get to see?
You have seen both already.
Oh, yeah.
Hi, Jiri. This is Renuka from the Times of India. I heard you speak yesterday, and I want to ask a slightly interesting question. I had met Russo brothers when they were here. They were here twice. And they spoke about how there were a lot of Indian Hindu mythological references which they put in Avengers. So they are saying India has such a rich mythology that it really inspired them to put certain scenes in the superhero American universe. Did that happen to you as well somewhere? Are you acquainted or are you familiar with the mythology that India holds? And I will ask you one more, but after you answer this.
I'm not super well acquainted with Indian mythology per se, and I should say mythologies because I think there's lots of different strains of it that run through the various cultures in India. That's not something that I've consciously worked into Tolkien, but I'm a student of mythology in general in humanity. And I think Tolkien was as well, and there are some universal themes that I think run through the myths of various peoples. After coming here, I'm getting really excited about, I've always been sort of a fan of Indian cuisine and Indian music and of Bollywood films, but Indian mythology is something I haven't done the deep dive on. But after spending a little bit of time here, I really want to do a deeper dive on it. So ask me again season 2.
And you spoke something interesting yesterday as to how the series has a lot of references to what is happening in day-to-day life today in the contemporary world, be it the socio-political scenario, or how did that inspire you to make, or did some of that translate to screen through this series?
Well, so Tolkien, and thank you, that's a very good question. Tolkien spoke about not wanting to write allegorical work, but write work that was always applicable. So he didn't want you to sort of like read his books and say, oh, well, clearly this character is that politician over there, or these people represent that culture over there, because then once you've sort of like done the math, the story so it doesn't have much more to it. But he wanted it to be something that was applicable across all times and have themes that you could go back to and sort of revisit in new contexts again and again. And it's these timeless themes of good versus evil, right? Of underdogs, these sort of like small characters who are tasked with great things. The corrupting nature of power, the enduring power of friendship to overcome great evil. I mean, these are classic Tolkienian themes that resonate all across different ages and different cultures. So those were very important to us to get right. And then also finally, like the idea of factionalization within societies, like in Numenor, you see these two sort of factions developing, and what happens when we cease to be able to really communicate with each other and get to that point where our society is crumbling. So I think these are things that are very applicable today. and that I hope people will be able to watch and apply in ways that we couldn't have even anticipated, to their own, whether it's families or to their own civilizations. Tolkien, I think, is more applicable now than ever.
Thank you so much.
In terms of content, if I may say so, the Indian content is at par with Hollywood right now. I mean, they're coming up with really good content. Of course, we are struggling with budgets. With the pandemic, India has kind of opened to a lot of shows. They are watching K-drama. They watch a lot of international shows. But as a filmmaker, did you watch any Indian shows that you really related to? And how do you think India is growing as a market? Also, recently we saw, an Indian actor being cast in a film like The Grey Man. How much do you think as a filmmaker it helps, when you cast an Indian actor in a global scale? Did you consider that while shooting for this show?
Thank you. So I'm by no means an expert on world cinema or Indian cinema in particular, but from my understanding, I think India is putting out many times as many films every year as Hollywood. And so has a really thriving film market, which I think is influencing world cinema for good. I have every Bollywood movie I've seen I've enjoyed. I love Lagan. This movie came out maybe 15 years ago, 20 years ago almost. Yeah, but I love it as the spirit that comes with it. I love the idea that at any moment all of us could break out in song and just like start dancing, because that feels very human to me. Like I have a very joyful spirit inside me, and for me, the idea of like song and music always being like sort of right at our footsteps is something that's really appealing, and so I love that spirit that and also the really wonderfully visual imagination that a lot of Indian films that I've seen bring. They're so fantastical and so visual, and so I love visual storytelling that takes you on sort of a luscious treat. So I think that it's a very positive influence on cinema in general in the world, and I hope to be able to become better acquainted with myself, as I continue to learn. So that was your first question. I feel like you had a follow-up question to the end of that. What was it?
Casting Indian actors.
Okay, yes. So nothing season 1, but keep your eye out season 2.
So, were you too careful while developing the characters, their names and their personalities? And also, in other words, was it tough to walk on the fine line between being factually correct and using your creative freedom?
Yes, thank you for that. So Tolkien has a quote that we love to refer to where he spoke about wanting to create an interconnected series of myths and still leave room for other minds and hands wielding paint and music and drama. So it was his wish that people would come after him and continue to excavate Middle-earth. I mean, he often spoke not of creating Middle-earth, but he always felt like he was working with something that kind of pre-existed him and that he was discovering more than creating. And we've had that same experience where he left us sort of like the tip of an iceberg, and then we would sort of like continue to sort of go underneath it to see what's down there. And we always tried to create in as Tolkienian a way as possible. So some of that means going back to the original myths that inspired him. Some of that just means going back to the books obsessively. We started every day of the writer's room with a quote from Tolkien and just tried to stay in tune. But then also, as you said, we did have to invent and adapt and translate really from one medium into the next. And there were times where he'll give us just 3 or 4 sentences about a character who does pivotal things in the story. So we know what they do, and we know kind of where they come from. But in terms of what's their personality like, are they pleasant to be around? Are they are they difficult? How do we really flesh them out and turn them into a 3-dimensional being? That's challenging, you try to make sure that you're doing it in a way that feels true to Middle-earth, and feels like when people watch it, they look at it, they feel like it's always been there.
And do you see yourself as a creator going, like we have seen prequels with Hobbit and now you have brought a prequel. Do you see yourself going ahead of the story? Like maybe bring a sequels next to what we have seen already?
Oh, it's a good question. And I also want to, sorry, one last part to answer your previous question. We also worked very closely with the Tolkien estate. Simon Tolkien, who's the grandson of J.R.R. Tolkien, and with Tolkien experts like Tom Shippey, who holds Tolkien's chair at Oxford, and Carl Hofstadter is the Tolkien language expert, John Howe, who has been drawing Middle-earth for decades. So working also very closely with Tolkien experts and with the Tolkien estate helped us to really have confidence that when we were inventing and adding on to Tolkien, we were doing it in as respectful a way as possible. But in terms of where we're going to go to, we have 50 hours of show planned. It's the Forging of the Rings of Power, it's the Rise of the Dark Lord Sauron, the Fall of Numenor, and then the Last Alliance of Elves and Men. So it's this really epic Tolkienian story that has only ever really been glimpsed before. We know what the last shot of the show is going to be. One advantage we have of having Amazon having committed to doing 5 seasons and 50 hours of show is that we know sort of what the canvas is, and we can say, okay, we're setting up seeds of character decisions and choices in season 1 that will pay off 40 hours later from now. And so that's a really cool thing as a writer to be able to plan out a story that's that long. Thank you, thank you.
Hi, you are bringing this world of darkness from book to physical. How much challenging it was?
I'm sorry, the World of Darkness from?
Yeah, book from the physical level, you are bringing this darkness, the world of darkness, right? From books to physical aspect. So how much challenging it was for you?
How challenging was it to bring the darkness in specific, or just like translating from the book in general, or specifically the dark parts?
Yes.
In terms of darkness, it's interesting because as an artist, darkness is very important to be able to explore, right? Because we all as humans deal with temptations, with suffering, with pain. It's part of being human. And a challenge as a creator is to deal with darkness while not creating something that is itself dark, if that makes sense, or adds to darkness. I don't want to add to darkness in the world. The world has enough darkness on its own, but I do need to explore what happens when people are faced with darkness, and you can't gloss over it, or the work doesn't feel authentic, it doesn't feel real. And something that's so beautiful about Tolkien is that these works were born in some of the greatest suffering of the 20th century, or really any century, and that World War I was this monumentally painful human event. And by the time he was in his early 20s, he had seen several of his friends die, and lived things that some of us will never experience in our lives. And so Middle-earth was born out of that pain. But whereas other writers of his generation responded by writing these works of alienation and sort of fragmentation and sort of the lost generation, Tolkien responded by writing a fairy tale. And a fairy tale which, it's been said that it's hard to create a truly optimistic work of art. But Tolkien's fairy tale didn't just gloss over the pain, didn't just sort of like smile and say, it's all going to be okay, don't worry about it. He takes you there, right? You go to the steps of Cirith Ungol where Frodo and Gollum are, betraying each other, or sorry, Frodo and Sam are betraying each other, and Gollum is turning Frodo and Sam against each other, the two best friends in Tolkien, and Boromir tries to take the ring and goes evil, like really terrible things happen in Tolkien. He doesn't shy away from it, but then always in Tolkien there's that, like one ray of sunlight, in the midst of a cloud, in the midst of a battle, someone will just like look up and there's like a star that they can see, and that little tiny pinprick of light, kind of gives them hope in the midst of the middle of darkness. And that's the thing that I think will resonate with audiences across the world, because our world has been through a lot, even in the 5 years since I started making this thing. We've been through a pandemic, we've been through social and political unrest and economic difficulties, of all different kinds. I'm hoping that special feeling of Middle-earth finds audiences in their time of darkness. Thank you for the question.
We see cinematic creative freedom and creative liberty when it comes to from novels and then to movies and then now to series. For instance, with Elendil character, the character was a little bit, there was a difference in book, the way the character was moving, and also in film. But when it comes to Rings of Power, Elendil was a huge character. So how do you pan your writing style? Did you take reference from the book or from the movie? Because Elendil had two different things in, be it in book and thing. And for instance, like when we come to Dune from Francis, few characters would have been male, but in the movie they made it as a female. So what are all the creative freedoms that you had in Lord of the Rings, because Tolkienian has already used many of the characters in Lord of the Rings and similarities in other books. So what were all your limitations and what were all your freedom?
Thank you for asking the question. Yeah, and our watchword again was we always try to take it back to the book. We always tried to make sure that we were being as true to Tolkien as humanly possible. And it required a lot of adaptation. One of the big things we had to do in terms of changing from the books was timelines, because the Second Age itself is thousands of years long, and so immediately we said, gosh, if we're going to be totally faithful and make like documentary Middle Earth, you'll have a human character show up for one episode and then they're going to be dead, and then the elves will just kind of live on. And but we said, if it's just going to be 50 hours long, you want to take people on a journey where they're going to be really able to invest in each of the characters and spend time with them. So we took some events that happened over here and some events that happened over here and some events that happened over here and sort of compressed them all in the timeline. And we worked very closely with the Tolkien estate from the beginning and said, are you guys comfortable with us compressing this that much? And they said, no, we think it's essential that you guys do that. So that was a license that we took that we felt like some fans, super fans, might say like, well, why'd you do that? And they say, well, whenever you're going to do an adaptation, some things will be lost, but some things will also be gained. And people always have the books, and you can always go back to the books and read the books and enjoy and experience Tolkien in that way. And this is just another medium, one of many, in which people will experience Tolkien. And we see ourselves as part of a continuum of artists who've been adapting Tolkien for decades now. You have the Ralph Bakshi films, you have the Jackson films, you have John Howe and Alan Lee's artwork, you have Led Zeppelin's songs, and so all these different artists have been working in Middle Earth for a long time, and we are just stewards of this incarnation of Middle Earth, and we know people will come after us also, but we hope that the choices we make and the licenses we take will be things that will enhance people's experience in Middle Earth and hopefully point them back to the book so that they can go and read Tolkien as well. Thank you.
Hi. So my question actually comes from me being a former literature student, and Tolkien is a benchmark when it comes to understanding a lot of politics as well. Middle Earth is not just about fantasy, and art is never created in vacuum. So I wanted to know what is it, if any, that you wanted to show, what would be the politics of your show? Or what is that element that you would say you've drawn from real life, even though it's set in Middle Earth and in a realm of fantasy?
No, for sure. Thank you for that. So again, we try to make it so that there is nothing that is specifically pointing to one group or another group, so that it's not allegorical, right? That it's applicable. And I think like Numenor is a good example. We actually went overboard to make sure that you wouldn't be able to say like, okay, because there's these two groups in Numenor, right? There's the Kingsmen and then there's the Faithful. The Faithful are like slightly more traditional and like sort of point towards the Elvish ways. The Kingsmen, want to just have a kingdom of men that has their own values that isn't sort of so rooted in tradition. So it'd be very easy for people to say like, okay, these people represent that group and these people represent that group. But we actually would like put qualities in both of the groups so that like you couldn't say like, oh, these. If you tried to sort of put these people over here, you'd say, well, wait a minute, but they actually also have these qualities. And so ultimately, everyone should be able to see some version of themselves in all of it, both the good guys and the bad guys, so to speak. We do that so that it will be something that will. One of the powers of fantasy, I think, is that it can cause people to be self-reflexive in ways that something that is pure, sort of like. Cinema, verite, like things of just like true world cinema. Sometimes if you're going to go to something, you're like, all right, well that's from the other team. I'm not going to really engage with or listen to that side, and so you have already a wall and a defense that's built against really sort of engaging with certain ideas. But hopefully in Tolkien, you leave some of those defenses and prejudices at the door, and you just go in and you settle down. And you say, I'm in Middle Earth. And it should be both a comforting experience, but also a challenging experience, because you could say like, oh, I identify with those guys, and they're good guys, but they're doing some things that I don't like, and I do some of those things sometimes too, and boy, like if I did things a little differently, I wouldn't be having some of the problems that they're having, because like clearly it's causing their society many difficulties and their relationships difficulties, and so Tolkien I think can make us reflect on our own challenges and problems in ways that hopefully will be really productive and will start a conversation not just within ourselves, but among ourselves, and give us a shared language that we can use when maybe the language of politics or other languages fail us. The language of Tolkien can bring us together and give us a place that we can really talk about things.
Hi. The show will have different kind of audience. The fans of the books, the fans of Tolkien's, the fans of movies, fans of Peter Jackson, and fans of each character, even Gandalf fans of Frodo. So how are you going to meet the expectation of each different groups?
I don't think we can meet everyone's expectations. I'm sure some people are going to be frustrated with decisions we've made, and some people are going to be ecstatic with decisions we've made. I think we just are, as dramatists, are trying to do the very best we can and make a show that will be faithful to Tolkien, but also surprising in certain ways, and take characters that you know and love and meet them in different contexts, and in some cases many thousands of years before you've met them before. So like Elrond, for example, is a character that's very near and dear to people's hearts. People know him as this sort of somewhat jaded and cynical elder statesman. The elves have one foot out the door, and their time is coming to a close, and men are weak. But we're going to meet him when elves were at the height of their civilization, he was at the sort of center of elven power as a right-hand man to the king. So we'll meet an Elrond that is optimistic and young and has all kinds of plans for what he wants to do in Middle Earth, and we're going to sort of watch him go on this journey. Where you see why he becomes, the sort of more jaded and cynical elder statesman in the sort of later part of his life. We hope people go on those journeys and get to meet beloved characters in new contexts and get to enjoy them and meet them all as though for the first time.
Hi, from the past 25 years, you have worked with many big production houses, namely Walt Disney, Paramount, etc., etc. While working for this Lord of the Rings, what is a new thing which you have learned or experienced?
I need to write a novel to answer the question. It's been so much, when we first started off with this, we wrote to our mentor, J.J. Abrams, with whom we'd worked on Star Trek, and he directed Star Wars. I'm sure you know who J.J. is, but we told him we got the job and asked him for his advice, and he said, "Say I don't know a lot, but trust your instincts." And so we did. We tried to approach this with a lot of humility and say like, look, we've never done something like this before, but there's a lot of really smart people who have. And so we brought in a wonderful producer, Lindsay Weber, and then with her we built out an entire team of really amazing collaborators, and not just collaborators but mentors, people we knew we could really trust, and people who were at the top of their game. And I could go through and list all of them, but you can go and find out who they were. That information is available publicly. And all of them were just wonderful to work with. We would sit down and we had a vision for what this should be, and then we would say to them, go off and explore, bring back ideas, and hopefully those ideas will challenge us and make something better than any of us could make on our own. And if they went too far off the reservation, we'd say, okay, come on back in. But often they would bring back things that we'd never thought of and that were really cool ideas that would then make us go and change the scripts a little bit. So it was a constant process of inspiring each other. But I'd say, one of the things that I personally maybe learned most of the course of season 1 and had to grow with as an artist was, learning when to stay true to your initial vision and when to be flexible and when to let go. Because there's times when an idea that seemed like the best thing in the world when you were in the writer's room, you realize, okay, that's going to be impossible to create in terms of budget or just in terms of the practicality of shooting something, and those resources are better put investing in those other 5 ideas, and sometimes it's hard to let go. And sometimes you need to stay on something because no, that's going to be the core of the thing, and if you let go of that, then the whole thing will fall apart. So really figuring out, as they say, when to hold them, when to fold them, is a challenging thing and one that I have had to grow with as an artist over the course of season 1. Yes, someone. Yes, when I first got out of the car and went shopping yesterday, a man came up to me and put this on me and gave me a blessing, and I felt so. It was a beautiful experience. Thank you all. Hope you enjoyed the show.
Hi. First of all, congratulations. The show looks great from whatever we've seen. Also, congratulations on being Numenorians. That's like something that's amazing. What was your? My question is for all of you. What was your first impression when you just walked on set? Because Numenor, the set looks amazing from what I've seen.
You want to say that one?
We shot on a private beach our first day, so that wasn't even on the amazing set that Ramsey Avery designed, and that was incredible too. I mean, we drove to this tiny little beach town. There was no service for the 3 days we shot.
I remember just taking a chair in the morning and just placing it on the beach and just staring out into the sort of vastness and the sea and just being like, wow. I had no words. I have no words now, but it was definitely a feeling of just like, we are like this superhuman race on the most beautiful landscape, you know, filming like the dream job.
Watching the sunrise,
Special. Yeah. It was also our first day on set.
Was your first day on set? It wasn't really a set then, was it? It was.
Yeah, it was a natural environment.
Yeah, and I got to do the set of Numenor, which was absolutely extraordinary because they took 6 months to build it. So the first time we stepped onto that city, essentially, that they built a city on the back lot, was quite extraordinary. The depth of sort of creativity, knowledge, love put into what they made there and the history they built. So you could feel a city having been built up from the ground, and history is there, visible in the architecture, in the design, in the decay. It was a phenomenal thing to be part of.
Thank you.
So that didn't work because you just looked at her, didn't you, when you asked the question?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
So that's no good, right?
No, we'll just keep looking at the barrel,
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, you're answering now?
It has to go into the camera.
Gotcha.
Hi, I'm Renuka from the Times of India. Welcome. I would like to welcome all three of you to India. Is it the first time that all three of you are here, or one of you has been here before?
I've been here before, yes. I did a Bollywood film here a few years ago in Mumbai and in Jodhpur, so I'm really glad to be back. Very excited to be back in India.
All right. And when you do a series like this, which has a huge legacy involved in it, how difficult is it? And also, it's a relatively new cast. So the pressure is very high because there's a lot of money riding in, there's a lot of expectations. So did you guys have nerves on set? And what was it like to step into something that could become legendary?
Oh, my nerves were awful. I think our hotel rooms were right next to each other the night before we were going to shoot, and Maxim in the morning in my trailer said I was like singing scales in my sleep.
Yeah, I remember that.
Do you remember?
Oh my God.
I woke you up because
That was strange.
I was doing the vocal warm-ups that Leith McPherson had.
In your sleep?
Yeah. It was our dialect coach had given me. I was doing them in my sleep. I was so nervous.
Just to calm you down.
Just to calm me down.
It's an amazing thing because there's so much surrounding it, and as well as one's own just love for the material. I read the books when I was a kid and all of that. So it's very much an old, deep memory of Tolkien. So that pressure is one. Then the pressure of the fandom and all of the things that people adore about Tolkien's work. So the pressure is essentially in one's head, but then, of course, when you arrive on set at that final moment where you actually have to make something and create the story, then it comes down to a simple moment of truth between actors, and that we know how to do, and that we've done throughout our careers, and so everything else falls away. And then you just try to collectively think, what is the story that we're all trying to tell together, and how can we tell that as truthfully and honestly as we can? And I think in our case with this family, and how it reflects the divisions within Numenor itself, it's very, very. There's a lot of juice for us to play with, and so yes, there was everything surrounding it, and one can get very excited about that. But in the actual moment of making it and creating it, it was very simple and how it's been done for centuries between actors.
Maxim?
I would actually say that being around an experienced actor like Lloyd has also helped us me as an inexperienced young actor to feel confident in my choices, and the pressure and expectation of such a big show, finding your anchor was very reassuring, and I think helped me bring out my best performance. So thank you, Lloyd, my father.
Nice. I like the fact you use anchor as sort of sailing imagery for.
I do try.
For Numenor was good.
I do try.
I still remember a piece of advice you gave me. I think we were at horse riding, and I was like, "Oh, I'm so nervous. I'm so nervous." And Lloyd said this really nice thing about like, you can't get too far away from you. You're kind of stuck with this body, this voice for the most part, you know. And you said something, sorry, I'm butchering it. You said something really beautiful about just...
Is that it?
I don't remember.
Is that what you said? Basically, just you're stuck in your body and you've got your own voice, so there you go. Did that calm you down?
Just that...
I think what one forgets as the actor is that you can't see yourself objectively, and yet you judge yourself from another angle. You have to just remember what you have, who you are, and what you will naturally bring to
Yes.
the role, because if you've been properly cast, which you have, both of you, then you just have to be and just have to play and be yourself, filtered through your character. That was maybe my advice.
Before I go, Maxim, Mr. Bean, how can I not ask you about that?
Yeah, my career peaked in 2007, so it's been a lot to live up to that. But yeah, that was a wonderful experience with Rowan Atkinson, who's still a very good friend.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So this isn't working, people sitting here, because you're just talking to her.
Yeah.
And
No,
I'm looking at
I
others.
directed Down the Barrel, yeah.
You?
I looked 70% of the time.
Yeah, okay, fine.
Yeah.
Do you think we
Yeah,
should
I'm about 80% as
do you
well,
think
Down
we
the
should
Barrel.
just forget it, because it would be
We're on live, mate.
All right, fine.
Sorry, hi.
Hi.
Okay.
This question is for all three of you. What's it like to be an actor in today's day and age? Because, you know, as soon as, today's day and age, it's like the social media that kind of becomes the deciding factor, right? How the show is performed. And, you know, soon after the release, there's like a meme fest around the actors. They make memes. So as an actor, do you feel it's quite a tricky situation to be an actor in today's day and age where the social media kind of becomes the deciding factor for a show?
I love a good meme, but I don't think it's potentially the deciding factor of a show. I think it's about how it connects with someone on a deep personal level, and you know, if it can influence a generation, and if we can continue the legacy of the films, because it had such a strong connection to people. I don't think, you know, social media can definitely help enhance a show in terms of its reach and engagement, but in terms of connecting, which is what we do as actors at the end of the day, is to really distill themes and portray them as honestly and as truthfully as we can.
I will say, Miv and I were having kind of a funny conversation about this, because the two of us are, I think, more of the more extremely online people in the cast. Morvith, yes. Just discussing which shots are likely to get memes and what the captions can be. This is something you start thinking about when you watch yourself. That's kind of new.
I mean, in terms of me and social media, that wasn't something I had to face at all as an actor of my generation, and much of the time I do look at the younger members of this cast and the challenges that they face with social media, because in general terms, just because I haven't grown up with it, I'm not on it as much. I find the same with my kids, depending on where you're born in history. Is the effect of social media, but certainly there's much that's joyful about it, and as you say, the memes are hilarious and part of that stuff. But I think there always needs to be a certain amount of discipline. And I was talking earlier about theatre reviews as a young actor, and I haven't read a theatre review for 20 odd years because one older actor said to me, "You don't have to. You could," and it was just a revelation. I thought I don't actually have to look at that stuff, and then ultimately. Because really, what you have in the rehearsal room, what we have on set, is we have a lot of discussions, and we make the choices together collectively about this adaptation, about these characters and who they are, and you just have to live or die with that, and everything else is opinion. And you know, if you believe the good, you got to believe the bad. And as I say, praise and criticism are both imposters. You just have to hold on tight to your cast members, writer, director, and go forward with the choices that you've made, and hope that people enjoy it and connect and feel a sense of being able to share the story together, because that's the great hope, is that we between you watching it and us making it, that we actually create whatever Tolkien had hoped, you know, that hoped that his writing or the messages he wanted to get across would be properly communicated.
Right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Was that the old boomer answer to social media?
Hi. Hi.
Hi there.
When we read a book or when we read a character, every reader will have their own visualization of that particular character. But when it became a movie or show, entire people, there is only one visualization, the actor who plays the role. So becoming the new face of talking epic characters, have you guys took it as a big responsibility, or how does that feel?
I couldn't quite hear all of that because there was a bit of noise in the background.
Sort of what everyone imagines something when they read characters. What does it feel like to be the definitive visualization for that?
There's definitely a sense of nerves, I guess, because at the end of the day, we are stepping into a very well-established universe and world that is loved by so many. But I think, we've done it with the utmost care and respect for Tolkien, and I would love to ask that question to him as well, to be like, do you like what we're doing? Do you feel like we are, respectful of the work? And yeah, feel very honoured and privileged to be these characters, or my character.
Lloyd, what about you?
Yes, I think it's interesting, isn't it? Because ultimately it's an adaptation of Tolkien's work, and with J.D. and Patrick, there's very much a sense of responsibility, love, and care to bring them forward. And what's fascinating about his work is that he's condensed some of the great, at least European myths, particularly Norse mythology and Celtic mythology, and somehow he's taken something that's local to him, but it's become universal, and therefore people are really attached to this story and the characters within it. And in my case, the character Elendil is a sort of hero archetype, mainly because of his self-sacrificial death at the end against Sauron, and people have a real attachment to that. And I think and Tolkien's only given us a few signposts along the way to who Elendil is, but I think had he had the opportunity to write him more broadly and flesh this character out, as we now have the privilege of doing, I think what Tolkien would have written is a much more, less black and white, less of a simple hero, and more how that man would get to heroic status, because the hero's journey is most usually the reluctant hero. No one is born a hero. You have to be forged and beaten into that sort of shape through adversity, through the difficulty, through overcoming fear, and trying to make the right choices as you go along. And I'm sure Elendil would make some poor choices, and we see some of that in the family, and how we started it with the loss of his wife and their mother, about how to keep his family going with that amount of grief, and he's making plenty of mistakes as a father along the way.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry, I talked too much.
Big answer there. It's a big answer. Good answer. Big
Hello.
answer.
Hi.
Hi there.
Hi.
Sonali from TV9. So my question is to all. One quality you like about your character?
Oh, he's funny, which I didn't really think of when I first read the script. But then whilst I was playing him, I was like, oh, he's funny.
My character draws a lot. She's an aspiring architect, and I drew so much as a kid, and it's something I really enjoyed. And as I got older and busier, it sort of fell by the wayside. And I was able to spend 3 hours every week drawing with Daniel Reeve, who made Bilbo Baggins' handwriting, and that was my favorite part of getting to play her, because I was kind of brought back to sort of childlike creation. I drew some things that weren't that great, some things I'm quite proud of. It was like going back to art class. Her artistic sensibility is my favorite thing about her.
No, I think for me with Elendil, it's his sense of duty and how the weight of duty lays upon him.
Okay. Well, Lloyd, I'm very curious to know, you have worked with the legendary Indian actors like Amitabh Bachchan and Amir Khan. So how was that experience for you?
Do you know, making that movie was one of the greatest privileges of my life, and both my personal life and my professional life. I got this opportunity to be brought in to Bollywood and that particular culture, but also the culture of India, particularly Mumbai and Jodhpur, where we shot. But just to be introduced to that world and so welcomed, so helped as well. I mean, Victor, our director, chose to have quite a few scenes, in fact all of my scenes in Urdu, so I had to go through a huge learning experience with the language and try and get deep down into how you construct your sentences in Hindi and Urdu, which is a completely different sentence structure from the UK, and try to understand what those words mean, find an emotional connection to them, and bring that forward in my character. It was such a rich experience, and I highly recommend it to my castmates. If ever they get the chance to do a Bollywood movie, I'd say grab it with both hands.
Looking forward to it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Hi,
Hi there.
I'm Tina. So I have slightly a question that's not really about the show, but I mean around it, but more about the costumes and the hair. I just wanted to know, what role do you think they play when you're trying to portray a particular character, or what kind of impact does it have in the long run of a show being memorable for people?
Costumes and
Makeup and hair, you know, because it adds to the character that you're playing, right? So I wanted to know what you had to say about that.
I guess that's the first element, is transformation as an actor, to become the role, which sadly, I mean, I wish I had more prosthetics and wigs, but I'm like, look very similar to myself, so I think
I love this question because I've always felt so affected by clothes. Like even on this press tour, depending on what I'm wearing every day, I've heard my voice go up and down, and you know.
Oh, so you feel good today?
I feel good today.
Yeah.
But I feel I'm so affected by clothing, especially for this. Kate Hawley put me in this beautiful orange dress, and I was so resistant to it because I don't normally wear warm colors. And she said, "Don't worry, love. We're going to spend 2 hours in the sun, and I'm going to hold up all these swatches of fabric until we find the perfect shade for your skin." And yeah, the costuming was one of my favorite parts of the production.
Yeah, it was an extraordinary process. I think I had about 6 or 7 costume fittings along the way, which is unprecedented. And each time we developed, and Kate Hawley developed more and more, the embroidery on the costume, the nautical themes that were on the various clothes, the different layers. And then there was a whole discussion about armour and rank and how you show the differences in people in a navy, in our case, because it's at the island of Numenor, is part of the world. And then into the makeup chair, and gradually, as Maxim was saying, you form as you put these clothes on, your imagination gradually gets more and more fired up, and then you just slip into the character you're playing. It's a crucial part of the process, and if it's wrong, it's hard to walk in it. It's hard to feel right, isn't it? And you're, as an actor, you're always bouncing against your own sense of self. So you want to make yourself disappear, and your character arrive, and costume, hair, and the set indeed is very much part of that process. And this was wonderfully done on this show, and easy.
Yeah, I think especially with Numenor, that sense of pride, also pride in how one dresses oneself and looks, was very interesting. Because I remember reading the character on the page first without having the costume. She felt more sort of masculine and tomboyish to me, and then when I started having fittings with Kate, her femininity started to show through. That was kind of a process for me mentally, creating the character. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, this is Karthik from Chennai. I need to speak. Sorry, I have a question for Robert Armayo. You are the only person that we have seen in TV series when it comes to GOT, and it seems like you are in a crossover from one particular franchise to other one. So, how do you see your character Elrond? Because it will be for sure for the first few seasons. So, how do you see your character Elrond?
Yeah, I mean, I see him as a young, in elven years, half-elf. He's an orphan. He's really passionate about Middle-earth. He's really passionate about serving his kingdom and his king. But he has a lot of heart, and he will do things in his life which change the face of the globe forever. But he's not there yet, which is a fun thing to play. Right now, he's at the beginning of all that, which is a great thing.
My question is for both of you. When you're kind of being part of a fantasy show, it's like a larger than life. What it takes for an actor to make the show look believable? Of course, it's all written. It's the creators team who has done the job. But as actors, what are the challenges that you face to make it look believable at the same time?
Well, I think it's a challenge, but at the same time, like if you like a lot of Man and Charlie stuff are two people sat in a room, much like this, having a conversation about something that is really interesting. And so if you have someone like Charlie and you're working with somebody like Charlie, it makes everything more easy because you get rooted in that central truth, which is ultimately they're trying to communicate with each other.
Yeah, I would say that I would also echo working with Rob is just as rewarding. But yeah, concentrating on your job, which is to communicate the truth of what you are saying to each other and listening to each other, and all the other stuff will take care of itself.
Robert, on one hand, you've been a part of a show like Behind Our Eyes, and then there's also something like a Game of Thrones, and now this show. So how challenging is it to be a part of one show which is which is a very complex character, and then these shows which are like these magnum opus where there's a lot of VFX and computer graphics. So which show do you think is most challenging between the two of the genres?
Yeah, I mean, they're both as challenging as each other, I would say, because ultimately what's at the bottom of it is just storytelling and trying to tell the most honest story that you can. You know, I think some of the characters that you spoke about are complicated, but I honestly do believe that Elrond is as complicated. And that's always fun to play as an actor. Yeah.
And with your work, people recognize you a lot. And the question is to the two of you: how familiar are you with work that is coming from India? Any shows, any movies that you've seen, any actors that you can recognize, or maybe you're fond of?
Not as familiar as I would like or as I should be. This is my first visit to India. I wish it could. Look, we're having a great time, but we only have a couple of days here. I would dearly love to spend more time here. When we can spend more time outside rather than inside. So that's my answer. I would love to come to India and be educate myself, and spend a few months. That would be wonderful.
What about you, Robert?
Yeah,
You're clearly escaping from this question.
No, I'm not escaping. I feel exactly the same. I just wish we had more time.
Yeah.
But it's great to be here.
Yeah, I wish we could answer. I wish we could satisfy you with some more, but it's a very, very fleeting trip. So better luck next time.
Thank you.
Hi, my question is for Charles. Celebimbo is an important character which the audience looking forward to see. Okay, so are you worried about their expectation, and are you good, bad, or dangerous in the show?
All three.
Yeah, all three. I'm just as excited to see him, and how. It's exciting for me because he's never been seen before. But the bonus is that he's very briefly referred to by Tolkien. So I don't feel the pressure that perhaps one might feel if he'd been a much more fully realized character being seen for the first time. I think because he is a blueprint essentially that Tolkien has given us, I feel that we as the showrunner JD and Patrick and myself and the writers have license to create the character for the first time. We're not following anything that's been set in stone. Other than obviously observing the few points that Tolkien has given us. So, and as regards to the second part of your question, good, bad, and dangerous, I think we'll have to see. We'll have to see what happens for those that don't know.
Thank you.
Hi. So my question is, just a very basic one, which for both of you, which are your favorite Tolkien film, books plus films, which of the Lord of the Rings films is your favorite? First, I would like the answer to that, then I'll ask the other question, I think.
My favourite book has always been The Fall of Gondolin. It's a wonderful, wonderful book. And I actually don't know why I love it so much, but I think it's because it's sort of, for me, it like shows the most beauty about his writing, because it's a book that has so many different versions, so many different tellings of the same thing, and each one is as breathtaking as the last. And I became obsessed with the idea of Gondolin as a city. If you don't know Gondolin, it's a really, really great part of his legendarium, and it's also really linked to Elrond. So yeah, I would probably say like I really enjoyed The Fall of Gondolin, and also probably Children of Húrin is probably my two favourites.
Mine would be, when I was little, I used to read a book called The Father Christmas Letters.
Oh yeah, they're great.
It's a beautiful book, and written for, as far as I'm aware, for his children. But it's what's so wonderful about Tolkien is that he writes ostensibly for children, well, at least that's how he started, but it's not in any way patronizing to children. It's written in a very adult style, but you know, straightforward enough for children to understand. So I would say that was my first experience of him, then followed by The Hobbit, and then Lord of the Rings. I was a little young for Silmarillion, but yeah, those ones.
Those are the things that he wrote like every Christmas for his kids
Yeah.
and stuff. Amazing.
And his drawings are sort of, you know, those pictures of Father Christmas. I remember trying to copy his drawings, and I copied his Elvish lettering and his Dwarvish lettering, and I did all this when I was a kid. He's been in my life a long time.
I also wanted to know that since Lord of the Rings as a trilogy or even as a concept, it looks at different kind of ideals, it looks at different kind of qualities, I would say. So I wanted to hear your thoughts on what would you have to say about the quality of ambition. Because when you say the word ambition, it can be looked at in both positive and negative ways. You know, sometimes ambition is the one that sort of probably even leads you to do something great, or something good for not just yourself, for everyone else. But it can also be the reason for somebody's downfall, or why you pull your community back. So just wanted to have your thoughts about the role of ambition in your individual characters, and also generally, you know, in the season that we are going to see soon.
I think it's very interesting. For a word like ambition, what you said about it meaning one thing or the other is very true. It seems to me when Tolkien wants it to mean something negative, he gives it a capital letter. Like he talks about science with a capital S. There's something about the use of that capital that gives it a slightly darker spin. And when he talks about the elves and their love of science and machinery, often these things are given little headings, like by capitalizing the first letter. And it's once you get to read him as much as we all have, you start to get those threads. And I think ambition, from personally speaking for my character, is implied by Tolkien to be a negative thing. We'll see where it takes him, but that's answering personally. That's what I believe about my character.
Yeah. I think it's I think that there are great ambitious acts within Tolkien. I think the ambition that Gil-galad must have to form the last alliance and bring all of those peoples together. The idea for him of building in Ladras, the last homely house, a place for all peoples, is extremely ambitious. So I think there's also there's a flip side to every coin, isn't there?
Yeah, there is.
It's when the character goes against the natural order of things, against nature, tries to get ahead with machinery, with the machine, that Tolkien usually punishes them.
Yes, he does. He does. Yeah.
Somewhere.
Yeah. It's all, but there's he implies his disapproval. He never says it, overtly. He just very kind of subtly plants these little signposts.
Hi, my question to both of you. As an actor, how do you maintain the legacy of the Lord of the Rings? Because from past 21 years, it is the biggest blockbuster. It has fan base huge across the world. As an actor, how you maintain the legacy? How you carried out the legacy of the Lord of the Rings?
I think the only way to engage with that question is to just focus on the circumstances that are in front of your character right now, you know. I really loved working on the show. I really loved working on Elrond, and it's a really interesting time in Middle-earth. It's a really different time in Middle-earth, you know. Elves still have prominence in a way that in the Third Age they do not. And so that's a really cool thing to play with, to imagine a world in which elves are still very strong.
Yeah. And the legacy is Tolkien's, really. And all we can say to you is that every single person on that set engaged with their work with so much passion and care. And everything about the show is taken from Tolkien, implied or otherwise. That is how one hopes to engage with the legacy, is to do it at the greatest service that you can.
Thank you. Hi, this is Sumesh Madhu from Kamudi TV Kerala. Here Charlotte Branstorm is directing 2 episodes in Rings of Power. What epic experience we can accept in that?
I mean, Charlotte is an incredible director.
Yeah.
I had loads of fun with her, and actually all of the scenes in the episodes that she directed that I had with her were mostly group scenes. So it was really exciting to be able to see how, you know, she just stormed on in, and she was like, "This is what we need. This is what we're going." And like, it was incredible. She was just, she was really amazing to work with, and nothing but good things to say about her.
It's very true that most of the scenes that we did with her were group scenes, and it felt really, some of my favourite family scenes were therefore with Charlotte, and she's an incredible director.
She is.
An incredible human as well. Yeah.
Hi, this is Amit from Dainik Bhaskar newspaper.
Hi. Hello.
Hi. Welcome to India all.
Thank you.
Okay, and so any unique and epic experience during the shoot, okay, as it has been shot on various locations, or in New Zealand only it has been shot?
Yes, various locations in New Zealand. We had the pleasure of seeing parts of New Zealand that are not the tourist attractions, because, you know, it would just kind of be somebody's farm, you know, that you would never normally get to go because it's private land. So it was really amazing to be able to experience that. But also we got to go down to the South Island, which was really exciting. That was a really fun trip. And I remember landing in Queenstown in the airport. When you fly in through all of these mountain ranges. And then when you get off the plane, you just see these mountains in front of you called the Remarkables. And I remember just feeling like there's something so incredible about being around things that are so big and feeling so small. And that is a moment that has really stuck with me.
You too? I mean, experience?
Oh, I think, I would equally agree with pretty much everything you said. I mean, and I particularly remember in the South Island too, the scenes that we shot were very intimate family scenes that were just, it really felt like the work we'd done together as an ensemble had really come to its fruition in the South Island. And we had some very funny adventures with the carts down there that you will see in the show, where we had a lot of cursing at the carts, because they were pretty heavy. But it was
never forgotten that day.
So lots of really great memories.
And and we are also hearing that the scale and the grandeur and the expense on this series is humongous. Massive amount of money has been put in. We are hearing that 450 CR is the budget of one episode. So is it something like that? 450 CR is the budget of one episode, or 23,000?
What, sorry?
The budget of one episode.
The budget of one episode.
Yeah.
Oh.
Cost of
I
production.
have no idea, as we are not the accountants.
Do you know
We
what?
are the there's a reason why I'm an actor and not an accountant.
Absolutely.
Because I don't like math.
Yeah.
So, I can barely balance my own budget.
Hi, this is Supriya from BBC Hindi News, and it's lovely to see all the three women sitting here. You're looking gorgeous, all the three of you.
Thank you so much. So do you. Thank you. I love your shoe. Oh, I can only see your shoes.
I know they've got the little silver.
Yeah,
on
they're
the
great.
edges.
Thank you.
Very nice.
You know, have you ever been traveled to India before, or this is your very first time?
First time.
First time.
So
Yeah,
exciting.
it's really
So
exciting.
lovely.
And
I have
how's
very-
it-
I have
how's
a
India
very dear
treating
friend
you?
who's Australian Indian, and she's talked to me a lot about India. So yeah, it's really exciting.
And what was your perception of India before coming here? And have you guys do you have some kind of list where you want to travel but you don't get a chance? I mean,
In India.
On this trip, unfortunately, we won't get much of a chance to explore as much as we'd like, I think.
No. But I wish we had a couple more days so that we could kind of actually go outside and immerse ourselves in the experience.
But everyone has been so welcoming here, and
Yeah.
you know, we've had such incredible food as well.
Yes.
It's been constant. It's
Yes.
been really
The food
amazing.
has been.
It's
the
actually
food
been a
has
slight
been
problem because
amazing.
we did our fittings before we came here, and now we're having serious trouble with some of our outfits.
But you know, and I would love to come again and properly do an actual, you know, visit and get to see the country.
And other areas.
Yeah.
Yeah.
if I talk about the series has been shot for a very long time. How challenging was for you guys to stay in the character for such a long time? How tiresome it was?
Not tiresome at all for me.
To stay in the character.
Yeah.
I would say, not that it was tiresome, but I would say that, you know, after a couple of years nearly of being in the character, I think it actually, it really does become, it sounds so cliche and, you know, but it does kind of become a part of you. It's almost like a bit of a personality that you kind of just adopt. And also because we were around each other so much of the time and we spent so much time together off set as well, we were able to, we just had a dynamic that we could then kind of transfer onto the screen as well. So yeah, I would say it was actually more liberating because we had that time.
Yeah, I know, I feel exactly the same. And I love Poppy. I love her and I love playing her. So it was actually it was a huge joy to be able to sit with her for such a long period of time and to really get to know her. And I'm still constantly learning things about her, which is the joy of this job. But yeah, and you know, being surrounded by such incredible castmates and you know, and friends as well. It's sort of, you didn't feel the time, especially not in a negative sense when it came to the work. If anything, I felt that it enhanced my feeling of her within me. So I'm very grateful for that time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Agnidev from the Telegraph India.
Hi. Hello.
Hi, hello. So this seems like the chirpy, bubbly, effervescent group around here. So how did that translate on set, and were JD and Patrick pretty difficult on you guys, or were they like the people that you looked up to when you were shooting?
They were such divas,
Yeah, I
JD
know.
and Patrick. They are two of the nicest people that you could possibly meet. So no diva-like or difficult behaviour at all.
I mean, there was that time. Imagine. No, and then also, sorry, the first part of your question.
About the
Yeah, so how did your camaraderie
bubbly.
translate onto the set?
Well, there was a lot of kind of singing and karaoke and
Yes.
all of that on set.
And off set.
And off
And off
set.
set.
In our lives, we did a lot of karaoke.
But so that kind of a combination of that and then wearing feet in mud at like 3 a.m, that was quite the experience.
There was definitely some delirium at like 3 a.m. giggles and silly games and all sorts of stuff. Yeah.
But the nice thing was is that what JD and Patrick had created for the Hartford community was a community, and a lot of the time we were filming with background artists as well, who were the Hartford community, and so it was really, it sort of felt very seamless. I think because of the connection that we have in our lives, in order to bring that to the characters and to the scripts.
Yeah.
It sort of felt, there was a sense of ease about it.
Yes.
Yeah.
You guys are really cool. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Hi, this is Harshvardhan from South India.
Hello.
This question is for all three of you. What are your favorite characters from previous Lord of the Rings and Hobbit movies?
Treebeard.
Yeah.
Oh.
Love Treebeard.
Treebeard's great.
Yeah.
It's so tricky.
Arwen I love as well.
Yeah, I do love Arwen from the films.
From the films.
Yeah. But I actually really do love Frodo as well.
Yeah.
I love Frodo's struggle. I find it very inspiring that he overcomes his own inner darkness.
And he's still so selfless.
Yeah.
You know.
Lots of them.
All of them.
Yeah, all of them, yeah.
Hello, I'm Suraj from Madhrubhumi. Hi. Just questions to you. You guys are really Tolkien's fan or the series fan? Which one you like the most?
Tolkien fan or the
series fans.
I mean,
series. Our series?
Yeah, series. No, the last 3 series actually. Last 3 cinemas. Lord of the Rings.
Oh, okay. I got you. Oh, right. For me, it all began with the books. So I think, and the films are from the books.
Yeah.
So for me, that's where it starts.
Okay.
But then it goes into the wonderful films and then comes around to our fantastic show. And yeah, it begins with Tolkien for me.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're all okay. Fine.
Hey guys, this is Shubham from Koimoi.
Hello.
First of all, Rings of Power is one of the most diverse cast we have right now. As female actors, as female representatives, tell me one thing that you would want to change in the system in cinema.
What to change? I think just that the industry just continues to become more representative of the world that we live in. So, you know, that more people can see themselves represented on screen and more communities can see themselves represented on screen.
I think I'd have to completely agree. That's beautifully articulated.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well done. Yeah.
Thank you for the question.
Thank you for the question. Yeah.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Meenaji Sundaram from Dinamalar. I am
Hello.
asking slowly. In shooting spot, some scenes take one shot, one take, single take, and the artist became very happy. Some scenes take after. Frankly told us, who is one take that good artist? The 3 of you.
Who is it?
Sorry,
Sorry,
the
I
last
got
bit?
all of it except the last bit.
Who is the one take artist ever gone?
Oh,
the one
the
take
one take
wonder.
Oh, the one take wonder. Oh gosh. In the Half-Foot Tribe, was any of us the one take wonder? I actually remember one night when I was about a million take wonder.
I think we were all
So I might win for that. Yeah.
I think it was, the great thing was there was so much complexity and the directors were very much like, we would like a take like this, we would like a take like this, we would like, you know, so there was constant exploring throughout it. So I don't think there was ever a time when it was like, right, we've got it.
And in fact, I'm not sure that we would have wanted it to be because
Well,
of that.
They had so many
We
ideas.
had so many things that we wanted to explore.
so many avenues.
And that gave them also lots of room to maneuver in the editing suite when they were really trying to put down the larger picture that we couldn't necessarily see.
Yeah.
So I think I'd agree with that. I don't think we would have wanted it to just be one take.
Yeah.
But there were definitely times where I was like, this is not,
forever.
this is going forever. Yeah. Can we
There
go
were
home?
definitely
I need
times
to.
where I was like, I've not got this at all. Okay.
Yeah. That's a good question, though. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Thank you very much.